Hello, I'm Jay from Volunteer Audio. Today I'm making a video covering this 2026 Harley-Davidson Road Glide Limited. I want to take you step by step through everything you need to know about upgrading the audio. The fairing speakers, the Tour Pak speakers, new lid speakers, and installing our Hertz amp with our A2B interface. Everything's going to be plug and play. It's going to sound amazing. You're going to want to follow along each step as you upgrade your bike. So before we get started, we want to always protect our bike. We don't want to cause any damage to it while we're doing our work. So I always want to put a fender protector on the front fender. Now, if you do not have a Harley fender protector like we're using, you could grab a towel or a blanket, something, just put over that fender so if you drop a bolt or a screwdriver, it doesn't dent the fender as you're working. We also have a bolt organizer, just a tray, that as I take this bike apart, I'm going to put the bolts in different trays, keeping them together. It's going to make it much easier as I go back together, and it's going to let me know if any bolts were left out, which we do not want to have happen. So when all the bolts are gone, we know we're back together and we're finished with our project. We also need to pull the main fuse. We're going to take the seat off and do that now so we don't throw any codes as we're taking this bike apart and unplugging multiple electrical connectors. All right, so on this new bike, one of the first things I want you to do, normally we would always just raise the Tour Pak to get access to the seat bolt. In this case, we're going to do that for a little bit more visibility for you, but you can also just pull this pad out. It just pushes in with these two clips. It's going to give us access to wiring and the seat bolt here in the back. We also on this bike have a strap that runs over for the passenger to hold on to. And we're going to be able to take the torque screw out of that to take that loose before we pull our seat. So I do have a T27 here. Yes, T27, removing that Torx bolt. Once we get that out, we're just going to take the strap and just leave it on, but just lay it over. I'm going to put that over in our storage container because we're not going to put that on until the end. And let's go ahead and remove our seat bolt. Same thing, T27 here at the rear. All right, so now those bolts are out. We're going to just slide our seat. We're going to lift at the back of it, slide toward the rear to release it, and we're going to lean it toward us because we need to unplug this connector. Sometimes it's actually clipped into here, so you'll unclip here, but this is our heated seat connector. So let's unplug it. Let's set it over to the side. All right, so now that we have all of this out of the way, I want you to look here. We're just going to pull out on this side cover. You could take it all the way off, but really don't need to. We're going to pull this cover off of this fuse, like so. Now I want to turn the ignition on the bike. So ignition's coming on. While the ignition is still on, I want you to pull this fuse out. That's going to disable the security system. It's also going to keep us from throwing any codes. Let's go ahead and cut our ignition switch back off. We're going to put our fuse over in our storage tray. Don't put the fuse in till the end. So I actually put it with my seat bolts and my strap bolts to make sure that I remember to do that before we put that seat back on. At this point, I'm just going to push this cover back on for now. All right, so I'm going to move to the front. We're going to pull the fairing, the outer fairing, the windshield, get that off. Then we'll come back here and we'll pull our gas tank. Don't be scared. The gas tank's not hard, and I'll show you step by step how to get it off. All right, so now I want you to get a T25 Torx, and we're going to start removing the windshield bolts. So there are going to be 2 bolts on each side, and then there's going to be some bolts below those once we get the glass off. This is a Clockworks windshield, so it's going to be a little longer bolts, slightly different than the original ones, but it's the same idea. So also on these, a lot of times they're marked right or left, so keep up with that. Make sure that you put them back in the right place when you're done. This little spacer just fell off from behind. So keep up with those as well. So both the spacer and this outer part are marked right and left. So make sure you put them in the right place when we go back together later. Once we got our bolts out of our windshield, we just slide it this way to get it out of these clips. We're going to set it over on our table. All right, so now that we have the windshield off, we've exposed 3 more bolts on each side on what I'm going to call the windshield bracket. Let's go ahead and pull those 3 bolts out. Sometimes I'll just leave these in these plastic parts and set them on my table so that I easily know which bolts are going where later on. So now that all 3 of those are loose, like so, I'll just set it over to the side. All right, so at this point we need to remove the trim right here at our vent. All you're going to do is grab a hold of each side and pull toward you. When you do so, it's going to pull a little clip and release it behind these two white clips. And we're going to set this over with our windshield. And now this piece of plastic that was underneath there now is going to also come off. Now these can slide in and out, so just keep up with those, making sure you don't lose them. All right, so next I'm going to go ahead and pull our speaker grills off. Now the way these grills work from the factory, there's two little plastic clips at the bottom that just lap over, and they're pretty weak and we don't want to break them. So what we do is I'm going to put some pressure on the bottom of the grill, and I'm going to take a tool and I'm going to bring it behind the top, and I'm going to pull out, releasing the two factory tabs. Once we have both of those released, you'll see these two little ears. They are beefing these up, as 26 is a little thicker than the older ones, but we still want to be careful not to break them. We'll be relogoing these grills and putting them back later with our new hog badges on them. Let's do the same thing on the other side. A little pressure at the bottom, pulling out at the top, releasing both clips. Like so. So now that is off. There's actually two more bolts behind that grill. I'm going to use that same T25. I think they're actually a T27, but either way, this tool's plenty good to remove it. All right, so now here at the bottom where this side vent is, you'll see there are two bolts on this inner fairing. We're just going to be removing the lower one. And do that on both sides. All right, so moving back to the front of the fairing, we don't have many bolts left, 4 more, and we'll be pulling the fairing off. You have 2 bolts going straight down through the top of this outer fairing. Let's go ahead and remove both of those. Same T25 Torx. All right, now we have 2 more that are facing on each side of the vent, just holding the inner and outer fairing together. Now at this point, I'm going to lean my body against the fairing just to make sure it doesn't fall off, because these are the last 2 bolts. All right, so now that those are out, I'm just going to grab my fairing and pull it forward. You're going to grab each of the outside edges and just pull them out around the speaker pods. Once you get it out a certain amount, it will just come all the way forward. And we're going to set it somewhere safe to make sure we don't damage it while we continue doing our work. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and remove our headlight. There are going to be 6 bolts holding it in, so I'm going to start down here at the bottom. I've moved to a T27 or T30 fit, so I'm going to remove the 2 bolts coming from these plastic ears to the bottom of it. These are a lot of times very tight, and they're pretty long. There's going to be a total of 6 of these bolts holding the headlight in, 2 at the bottom and 4 at the top. I'm going to go ahead and get these that are in here a little further. You can see there's actually an access to view them through this upper plate. All right, let's take the other one out. I use hand tools because I don't want to over torque them. I don't want to strip them out. Definitely don't want to cause an issue cross-threading a bolt. So by hand, you can do that much better, making sure you don't have those problems. All right, so those 2 are out. And now once we get these 2 out, nothing's holding the headlight in. So you got to be careful of that. We don't want to drop it. So I'm going to break both of them loose. Take one of them all the way out. All right, so now that I have the last bolt out, I'm just going to take my headlight, I'm going to slide it toward me, and I'm going to unplug this one electrical connector. Now there's a button on the bottom of it. If you press that button in and then slide out, it will unplug like so. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and remove that factory amplifier. Using that same T27, we're going to just loosen all 4 of these amp bolts and get those out of there. We're going to go ahead and move this little red retainer backwards. That'll allow us to unplug this. And normally before I remove the last 2 bolts, I'll go ahead and push down and slide it out slightly, making sure that we're loose. It's a very tight connection. Let's go ahead and remove these because you can't really slide that back much until you get the last bolts out. Pushing on that black plug and sliding outward. There we go. We're unclipped now. Those 4 bolts will likely not be used. Our new amp plate is going to come with new bolts that are going to go in to mount down where that goes. Now you do have the option when you buy this package to select the Velcro as a mounting option. If so, it's just going to stick right to this metal plate and you're not going to bolt anything in. Now I want to go ahead and talk about our headlight wiring while we're here. I'm going to grab another tool and I'm going to disconnect where it is the little retainers holding it in the fairing. It doesn't make any sense to run the headlight wiring over the top of the amp back under the headlight when it really just needs to go behind it. So we're going to pull these retainers loose and we're going to pull the headlight wiring down here where the headlight is. At this point, I'm just going to take some excess of it and pull it into this little framework behind the headlight on each side. This just kind of cleans up what we have on top. And we still have the wiring right here to plug into the headlight as we go back together. All right, so next we're going to unplug our GPS antenna and we're going to unplug our FM antenna. So this little blue connector here has a little push tab. If you push in and then slide this backwards, that's going to be your GPS antenna. You're going to want to pull it down and underneath here. You're going to want to cut each of the zip ties that are holding it in place because we're going to pull it out with this pod unless we see our GPS antenna is not very well stuck. Sometimes they can just be lifted up and you're not going to actually damage the tape that's holding it, and we'll put that back on later. So if that works out, I'll do it that way to keep from having to fully pull it out. Now this particular lead here, this thing that looks like a ribbon on the side, this flat silver part is your FM antenna. They don't pick up great, they're not amplified, it's not like a tall mast antenna, but we definitely don't want to damage it. So this white connector, if you press in on this button at the outer end and unplug it, will allow you to take that off. And we're going to be removing our speaker pods. Now the reason we're taking the pods off, we're installing a sound dampening material from SoundSkins. They're the only company pre-cutting them for these pods, but it's also a better material than you normally would buy in a roll. It's actually 2 layers. We have a butyl rubber layer with a silver backing, but on top of that we have another layer of foam. It gives us a really good speaker enclosure. It gets rid of those resonant frequencies escaping on the back and giving us better mid-bass projected toward us, more overall sound. And you know, we're spending a lot of money on an amazing system. We want to get the most out of it. And SoundSkins is a very affordable solution to get the best sound, and they make it easy. So we're going to pull the pods off to put that on. If you're not doing SoundSkins, you can take the speakers out through these front holes without removing the pods, but the pods are not hard to take off. So I'm going to continue on removing these front pods before we go back to our gas tank. So up here on each side, you'll also see a connector that is retained by this metal bracket. We're going to unplug this. This is our speaker plug for our front speaker pod. And we're going to disconnect this retainer. Let me grab a tool to do that, because when we take our speaker pod off, that's going to be fed down through this hole. Actually comes right through this hole. I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. So let's go ahead and pop this one out as well. Now I'm going to start removing the bolts for the speaker pods. There is one on this side that I feel like it's just better to unplug the infotainment system. So we're going to go ahead and take this yellow tab and pull it up. As we pull that up, it unplugs and lets us get this out of our way also. So now I'm going to remove these 3 bolts on each side holding our speaker pods on. All right, so we're going to use our T27 and just remove these 3 bolts on each side of this pod. I am going to go ahead and just unplug this USB connector, just to get it out of our way while we take these 2 out. Same thing on the other side. All right, so now that we have those 3 out, we're going to move down and come around this pod. You're going to see there's one all the way up in here. This one. And then 2 at the bottom. All right, now this is our last one, so make sure you put your hand on your pod and hold it so it doesn't fall off. And we'll make sure at the end that all these bolts go back in. This is a very important part to the rigidity of this fairing. All right, we got that last one. Now we can bring our pod off and let's set it over to the side to change our speaker and put our SoundSkins on later. All right, we're just going to remove those same screws on the other side. There's 4 that are on the side of the pod and 3 up at the radio area for a total of 7. I'll hold it on. All right, so let's set this one over to the side as well. So now we're going to move on to removing the gas tank. Don't be worried. As you see so far, there are a lot of steps, but they're easy steps. The gas tank is no different. So let's move to the front of the gas tank. Let's look down here between our bars. You'll see there are 2 rubber hoses coming out of the top of our tank. One has a clamp on it, one does not. I want you to take the one without the clamp, and I just want you to push and remove, just release this plastic pipe out of this rubber hose, like so. Now let's go to the back of our gas tank. You're going to find another rubber hose and a plastic pipe. Just do not pull this up too far because we don't want to pull it out of where it's going, but we want to release it as well, just like so. Now on both sides of the front of the gas tank, there are going to be some little covers over the front bolts. So I'm going to reach my hand in here and I'm going to pull one off and I'm going to show it to you. You're going to be removing one of these off the left and the right. They just lap over the metal and then expose that bolt for you. So we're going to remove both of those. Let's put those in our storage container. Now we're going to need a 13mm socket on a ratchet to remove the bolts at the back of the gas tank and the front of the gas tank. So I'm going to get that now. All right, so I like using an electric ratchet because up front with these lowers, with these vents, there's not a lot of room to actually move a ratchet. So I'm going to use one of these. I'm going to remove the 2 at the back of the tank first. Now I'm going to come up in between like so and remove those front bolts. On this side you got an air filter and a lower, so it gets a little tighter, but that electric ratchet really helps. All right, so now we have 2 more connectors to undo before we can try to get our tank off. We're going to be removing our fuel line. Now the good thing about this, it is a quick disconnect, and as you disconnect it, it cuts the fuel off automatically. You may get a drip or 2 of fuel, but you're not going to get much. This isn't a hard thing to do. All you're going to do is take the silver sleeve and lift it up. As you get that sleeve up, the fuel line is going to release, and just like that, our fuel is disconnected. It has also been turned off. Now you'll notice there's an electrical connector right here, this little line. If you follow it up and feel under the tank where it goes, there is another plug with a little button on it you press, and you're going to unplug that. Just like so. This is what the connector looks like. That's the little button I just pressed. Now there's nothing holding our gas tank on. It has been disconnected, fuel has been released. We do have this little plastic evap line. So this is just a drain or a vent. If you overfill it and fuel runs out, it's going to go down this tube all the way down here, and it has a little exit to the ground to keep from getting gas on the actual bike. As you lift up this tank though, this little line, which is clamped to the front of the tank, has 2 little retainers that it is sitting in on the side of the frame that you're going to need to release. So just fill underneath, follow that up, and make sure you get those released. I've got them both undone now. I'm going to take my tank off. I'm going to carry it over to the side and set it on our table. And just like so. So now that we have our gas tank off, we've exposed this. This is what we call the backbone of the bike. This is where all the wiring for the bike runs from front to rear. It's where we're also going to run our power and ground from our amp back to our battery. So you're going to see from the factory there are some zip ties wrapping around this. We're going to cut those zip ties and we're going to be removing those. They're not needed now. This all clips in, gas tank holds it on. This is something that they do when it's new coming down the assembly line. We're going to just remove each one of these zip ties. We're doing this so we can open this cover up and we can run our new wiring. They also wrap some automotive grade Tesa tape around it. So we're going to take a razor knife and we're going to cut that tape. Cutting through the tape so we can lift it off and expose our wiring channel. So once you've cut through it, just kind of peel. Let's see if we went all the way through it. There we go. We're just going to peel this tape up and over. We'll put it back over when we're done. There we go. All right, these 3 black lines are your anti-lock brake lines. So we're also going to be unsnapping that from here and moving it over to the side. And once we have our zip ties undone, our tape undone. This is moved over. Come to the back of this cover, and you'll see there's this plastic lips over, and there's some clips holding it. So we're just going to pull out, releasing those clips. As we release them, start working your way to the front, releasing them all the way up, and then take this cover off, and that exposes our channel where our wiring is going to go. So at this point, we're going to start going back together with the front. No need to leave all of this apart. We'll get our power and our ground for our amp ran up to the front. We'll put our cover on, our gas tank back on, and then we're going to go into the fairing. Now, I know, as being man or woman, if you're watching this video and you're very mechanically inclined, you're going to tend to try to skip forward and skip some steps. Don't do that. I'm going to show you every step of the way, all the tips and tricks and things that are going to make it where you do this install as we would do it, and you're going to have it done perfectly and get the best overall sound. Don't skip forward. Don't miss out on any of it, because it's all going to be important. Even if it seems a little dull and boring at times, I assure you everything I'm telling you is important, and it's going to allow this to go much easier on you, and the end result is going to be greater if you follow all the steps. All right, so with that being said, let's move to our table. We're going to take our SoundSkins kit, open it up, and install it and get our new speakers and our pods. We'll get our pods back on, and then we'll move into the amp wiring and power. All right, so let's get prepared to do our SoundSkins. One of the first things we're going to do, let's go ahead and pull our speakers out. These are just 4 T25 Torx screws, same ones we've been using everywhere else. I'm going to pull off all 4 out of each speaker. This bike is pretty well brand new. It has about 100 miles on it, so everything is still very, very clean. Let's go ahead and pull these speakers out, and let's unplug them. The black plug is your negative. The clear plug is your positive. Let's do that on both of these. All right, so let's do a quick speaker comparison between these speakers and the new ones we're putting in. All right, so let's continue on prepping these front speaker pods. You're going to find out there may be some stickers on them from the factory. Just go ahead and remove those off, because we're going to put our wrapping all the way around and over this. Also, this bike is brand new, so the pods are very, very clean. So I'm not going to have to spend a lot of time cleaning them, but if you have an older bike, you definitely want to take some isopropyl rubbing alcohol and just wipe down and clean it. Our SoundSkins are designed to go around these foam tabs, so you do not have to remove any of these foam pieces. That was Harley's sound dampening material. They didn't do a whole lot of it, but we do work around that to make it easier on your install. Let's open up our kit, see what's in here, and start getting those pieces separated out. All right, so inside of our box, one of the things you're going to find is a set of directions. You may want to look at those and go along with that as you follow along with me. I've done this a lot, so I'm going to make it look probably easier than it is, but if you follow along, it shouldn't be any harder for you than what you see me doing. I'm going to take each one of the pieces and get them out here, unwrapping them out of this paper. They are self-stick, and they don't want them to stick together in shipping, so they include that paper in between each sheet. So each one of your sheets is going to be pre-cut. They use some sort of a plotter to cut through this material, making it easier on you. You're not getting a flat sheet and then trying to figure out how to make it fit. And as you see, these pods are very complex in shape, and trying to hand cut a bunch of pieces for this takes forever. So we love using these kits. It makes our life much easier. So we're going to start tearing out each one of these pieces. You're going to see they do still kind of stick together to an extent. They're not broke all the way through. So you're going to have to use a little pressure and break them out. So we're going to start tearing out each one of these pieces. As I get them tore out, I'll set them aside, and then we'll dispose of the extra parts. Now you'll see some of them have, like in this case, it's got 3 round areas that were also cut, so we're going to pull those out as we're doing this. And if you mess up and you rip one of these pieces, no big deal, they're going to stick right back together, so you don't really have to worry about trying to be super careful as you tear them out. Now, some of the smaller pieces you may want to be more careful with, but again, if it rips, you can put it back together. All right, so I've got all of my pieces pulled out. My excess has been thrown in my trash here, and I've now tried to lay out some of my pieces that are alike together. For instance, a lot of the pieces are going to have a mirror image that goes on the other side, and so I've done this. I've just tried to put them together, and I'm going to start putting them on the pods with you and help you, and I'm going to try to do it with those parts first. The more of these we get on, the easier it's going to be to see where the rest of them go. So I've got one of my speaker pods here, and I'm going to start with a part that I think is relatively easy to find out where it goes. That's going to be this one. It actually goes right here on the outside, as you see, and it wraps around. And we have a mirror image of that to go on the other one. So I'll put it on this pod first, then we'll move and put it on the second pod as well. So to do that, all we're going to do is peel the white backing off. By doing so, we're releasing the sticky side that'll stick right to our pod. And then I'm going to start lining up things that with the lines on here, making sure that everything is where it's supposed to go. So going right up through here, and then as I get it where it goes, I'm just going to press down and put a little pressure. This particular one wraps around the front of the pod. I'm going to start wrapping that around. We're not covering every square inch, but we're covering a lot of it with this material, which is going to stop that resonating frequency. This plastic wants to vibrate as music is playing. This is helping to reduce that vibration, which sends the vibration of that sound more toward you and gives you better overall sound and more output. So that piece is on. Let's move on to our other pod here and do the same thing, but reverse. I think this is definitely the easier way to do it, is just to tackle both at the same time. So let's line this one up. And it just takes a little pressure from you, just pressing down for it to self-stick. It's a very, very simple installation. Just push on all the edges, making sure it's adhered well. All right, so we got that part done. So let's move on to another simple piece. We're going to flip it upside down on both of them. And we're going to grab these large pieces. And you'll see we have two of these mirror images of each other. They're going to go right underneath here. So I'm going to go ahead and peel these and stick those in place. Just making sure they're where they go. Now, if you stick them in the wrong place, you can unstick them. It just takes a little bit of pressure. So it's not like you have to be exactly perfect. If you mess up, you can do it again. So that big part is on. Let's grab the next one. Putting a little pressure on it. So now that we have that, I'll flip it over like this. Looking at this place with these three divots in the back. See those three locations? That is going to be the part that we had to tear those three little holes out of. So this is a part that also has a left and a right. It's going to fit like so. So I'm going to peel the backing off of this one and put it in place. All right, so we've got that one on. Let's move on to the next one here. Same thing on the other side. You can imagine trying to cut all these pieces would take a lot longer than just trying to tear them out. All right, so we got that piece in place. Let's roll it over to this side. We're going to get the piece that goes down through here. So we've got a couple of these, another mirror image part. This one is going to go here. So let me go ahead and peel that. Like so. I'm just pressing everything in place, making sure it sticks well. Let's do our other pod. All right, so let's go to the top of each one now. So I want to go, let's go to this side. we've got two more mirror image pieces here, these two, that we're going to be using next. This one's a little complicated if you don't realize that it bends. So I'm going to bend it in here and show you how it goes. Now I'm going to peel the backing and stick it in place. I do a great job of actually designing these not to block any of the factory hardware. So if you need access to a screw, they're not covering any of those up. Because in the future, you may have to take this pod apart or even tighten it back up. It's going to be good to have access to that. Same thing on this one. All right, so we've got that one stuck in place. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the ones that go on the face of the speaker pod. So we're going to have two more mirror image ones like so. This one actually goes right up here in the front. We're going to make sure that we don't get in the way of our speaker mounting position or where the flange of that would go. So line this up with the outside. Actually, didn't get all of it peeled there. Goes just like so on the face. Same thing over here. All right, so we have two more parts again that are going to go on the speaker on the face like so. And you'll see it's got a little cutout for where this is. So let's go ahead and peel it and stick this one. Let's make sure you leave this area for the speaker to mount open. Same thing on the other one now. Again, much easier if you just find where they go and do both of them versus trying to do these one piece at a time randomly as you go. So let's go to, what other mirror image parts do we have? So we have this one, and this one, we can put those in. Now we're going to get into quite a few that are different because these pods are a little different when we get into where the antenna goes on one and not on the other. So let's go ahead and spin these around. So we're looking at the top of our pod. So this is, if they were mounted on the bike, this is the top. And I'm going to put the piece that goes right here on next. We're leaving access for this, so the little cutout you see is for there. Same thing on our other pod. Just making sure it adheres. All right, let's go flip this back over to where our wire comes out on that side of our pod. Now we have two more pieces that go over here. It's going to go just like so, one for each side. The other good thing about a pre-cut kit is you know when you get done, your pod is going to go back on. If you try to do this on your own, there's a good chance you may put material where it can't go. All of this has been tested, it's been proven to work, and then it's replicated over and over again. For instance, you don't want to put any through here. That's where that metal bracket goes and where it bolts in. If you were to line that side, you would not be able to put your pod back in. All right, so now we're going to go to the top. Now this one's going to be a little easier because this top does not have the antenna. So I'm going to go to this large piece here. This large piece is going to go on this side because that antenna is not in the way. We can do it in a much larger single piece. Setting it here where it goes. Pressing down all the way around, making sure all the edges are really good and secure. As our outer fairing goes on, it'll push against this and hold it even tighter. That side is pretty simple. Now, let's go ahead and do the same part on the other one. So let's work around our antenna before we go to this other side. You're going to see a very similar look to what we had on the big one. We've got a square cut out for this foam pad, so this part goes down here. We're going to go ahead and peel it and put it in place. I know you can do this install. With my help, you and I together, we are going to get this done, and you're going to love the outcome when we are finished. That part's on. So let's move up here. So we're going to have a few little ones here that sometimes I have to trim these with scissors. Not because they're not made correct, but because we have an antenna that gets put in various places depending on how it got stuck on. So we'll start up here at the top. I never want to cover that antenna though, so I'm going to put this in place where I believe it goes. And then if there's anything about it covering that antenna, I'm going to trim it. So in this case, I'm just going to come up through here and cut it. A pair of scissors works fine. It's going to allow me to do that area. All right, so we have another piece that goes in here. Looks like we're clear. We don't have to trim it at all. Then we have a piece that goes here. And as you see, it's going to overhang a little bit for that antenna, so we're going to cut it a little bit more. So we're doing two things. We're keeping this pod from flexing, but we're also keeping the outer fairing from flexing in and out from the sound as well. All this is going to give us better sound. All right, one last side. So let's stand these on end. And we're going to find out that we have two pieces that are still yet kind of a mirror image. We have a long one, which is going to go on this side because it doesn't have an antenna in the way. And I like to go ahead and pre-mold it, kind of wrap my head around how it's going to fit, like so. Once I get that there, then I'm going to peel it and I'm going to stick it in place. All right, so one pod fully wrapped. Just one more piece to go on the other pod now. Same idea. We're going to stand it up on end. I'm going to get an idea of where it goes. Make sure I put it in the right place because sometimes this can be a little confusing until you bend it like it's shaped. All right, so that went on well also. So both pods are fully wrapped with our sound skins. So let's grab our new speakers. We'll go over getting those into the pods. And as soon as we get done with that, we'll go back and get them back on the bike. All right, so before we put our new speakers in, I always want to take a pair of pliers and I just want to squeeze these terminals to make them where they get a better grip. We don't want our pods to ever have to come back off because we had a speaker wire that came loose. So we're going to squeeze these in. The terminals on the speakers are not the exact same as these, but doing this is going to make them stay really well. On the back of your speaker, it's going to be labeled positive and negative. This white or clear terminal is going to go on the positive, and we're going to use the terminals facing toward the magnet. I'm going to slide them on, making sure they're tight and they don't easily pull back off. Same thing on the negative. It's on and it's good. So now I'm going to drop my speaker in, aligning our alignment tab up and using the factory screws that were holding the original speakers in to put these in. So we've got a more efficient, louder speaker, but we also have a speaker that's built to handle more power. A lot of times if you get a speaker that handles a lot of power, you'll find out it loses efficiency. Not the case with the Hertz Neo series. Extremely loud, extremely clear, very, very musical. You'll hear all the instruments in it, even at very, very loud volumes without distortion. All right, so we've got that one in. Let's move on and just do our other one. Same thing. Just going to squeeze our terminals in, making sure they're good and tight. Again, positive is going to be this white terminal. And the black one is the negative. All right. Lining up those original holes, putting in those original screws. T25 Torx, as we were using previously. Starting on 4 of them, then I'll get them all tight. All right, so all 4 screws are in, both speakers, they're good and tight. We did make sure we put them in with that alignment tab facing down so our speaker is not rotated or sideways. You will be able to see some of that logo through the grill, so we want to make sure that's straight. Let's move over to the bike. We're going to grab our T27 and start putting these back on. All right, so we have 7 short screws we used earlier. I've already got those gathered up in my hand. I'm going to take my speaker, making sure that my wire goes through this slot here. Put this in place where it goes, and I'm just going to start one of these bolts, one of the easier to get to bolts up here, so it can hold me in place as I get the other one started. All right, so now that one's started, I'm going to move to this location right back here, making sure we're holding everything in place. Now these are all shorter bolts. Our headlights use the exact same bolts, just longer, and we're actually going to replace one of these with the long headlight bolt, actually this particular location, to save a short one later to go up where our new amp is going. It's going to give us a little bit more room for wiring, and it makes it less likely that a bolt eventually rubs through any of the harnessing and the fairing. So short ones in these 3 locations facing toward the inner fairing. And we're going to do a long one here. Let me go ahead and get these started up here before we go tightening any of them down. Let's grab that long bolt from one of the headlights. So we're going to take one of the 6 headlight bolts, the long ones, put right down here. We're going to replace those upper headlight bolts with some short ones later, and this is going to help us do that. So let's start tightening them all down, all the way tight. Now that all 7 are in, and now let's tighten these 3 on the inside. Take my GPS antenna, put it right back up here where it goes, and stick it back on our pod. And let's grab our other pod and let's get it back where it goes now. Get it installed. All right, so same thing we just did on the other side. Only additional part is we want to get that speaker wire through where it goes, but make sure that antenna for the FM is lifted up and over. We don't want to get it in here and get it pinched. I want to slide this where it goes and start one of the short ones back here in the back of this pod. That one will pretty much hold everything in place while we start the other bolts. So again, I want to take a long one now and put in this front position up in here. Pushing this back where it goes. We're going to run it most of the way in, but I'm not going to tighten it yet. Let's do short ones in all the other positions. All right, so now that we have all 7 started, I'm going to start tightening them up as I go, all the way tight. Let's go ahead and plug our GPS antenna back in down here. It was actually the top one here. And our FM antenna is going to get plugged back in as well. It is the bottom one. And let's get that USB in. All right, so let's tighten up the 4 on the outside now. That long bottom one, and now the short ones. Awesome. Our speaker pods were removed, fully wrapped in sound dampening material, speakers changed, and fully reinstalled. So let's move on to the next part. I'm going to actually move on now to pulling the battery tray. We're going to pull some things off the top of the battery, getting access to it, connecting our power and ground cable, and running that into the fairing. So let's move on to that next. All right, so in your volunteer audio A2B Hertz amplifier, you also receive this power and ground harness. It is pre-made, pre-crimped, pre-heat shrunk, easy plug and play to your amplifier. Already has a fuse holder with a fuse installed, and we zip tie that closed so it doesn't come open in your bike. You have 2 ring terminals already pre-installed as well. These are going to get connected directly to the battery. Now I'm going to grab a couple tools. We're going to take the top, all the little parts that are on top of the battery off. We're going to connect this and then route it to the front. All right, so under your seat, there's a couple connections here we'll talk about so you know what they are. I know a lot of you are interested in what we're doing. We have this is where our seat plugged in for our heated seat. This wiring that runs to the back does our lighting on the rear, along with the rear speaker wire is running through here and back on up to our Tour Pak. So we're going to unplug this connector. We're also going to take our heated gear plugs here and we're going to unplug those. Now earlier in the video, at the beginning, we removed the main fuse. We did that for a very specific reason. The main one is that this used to be the ECM on these bikes. It is now the body control module. If you lift this up, it's going to think you tipped the bike on its side if the ignition were on or power were connected, and it may not let you start your bike. We don't have to worry about that because we went through the steps of removing that fuse. This is the accessory connector. Like if you had our Kenwood camera system, it plugs in here. Other accessories can plug into this connector under the seat. And this little box here is the receiver. We're going to lift up and slide forward. This is what they call the antenna for your key fob. So we definitely need that or our key's not going to work. Once we've disconnected each one of these, which we just picked up and slid this way to slide them out of their grooves, we have this little plastic cover that has a clip in the front that we're going to unclip. We're just going to slide it forward and unclip it. And that's going to allow this whole thing to just kind of set over here to the side, out of our way. Now this BCM has another clip here at the front that we're just going to push out on, allowing us to lift it up. And we're just going to stand it up vertically or over to this side. That's why we think we tipped the bike over. And that gives us access to our battery. This battery cover has a single T27 Torx bolt in the front that we're going to remove, and we're going to be taking this out. Now, one of the things we're doing as part of this install is we are upgrading our battery. This factory battery is an absorbed glass mat battery, also known as AGM. It's a sealed battery, and it is 400 cranking amps. In our testing, it does about 300 to 330 cranking amps when it's fully charged. And the amp hour or longevity, how long it will run, is really low. To the point that Harley, with all the extra electronics on this bike, they added something called a battery saver mode. If your battery gets down to about 12.2 volts, you're going to see that your audio cuts to quarter volume and some of the other accessories do not work until the bike has been started back up. It's nice because it doesn't allow you to run the battery dead while you're out on it playing with your accessories. But on the flip side, if you put a new audio system in and you want to show off to your friends, you may get one song out of your new big amp before it's pulled the voltage down enough because the battery's just too weak for that. Now, our amplifier will work with the stock battery. This is not a requirement that you have to do. It pulls about 60 amps at absolute full tilt clipped, which you don't see in actual riding. You're going to see maybe 30 amps of current during musical riding down the road. So this battery is going to be a huge upgrade. It's going to start better. It's got 1,500 cranking amps. It has much better reserve power, but it's also lighter. This battery in the bike weighs about 22 pounds. The new one weighs 7. So we're losing some weight by going to the lithium battery, and we're getting a tremendous amount of extra power. Now, we're specifically using a lithium titanate battery. That is not lithium ion. It is not lithium phosphate, known as LiPo. It is a different technology that uses a titanium-wrapped lithium cell. It is stronger, more powerful, and about 4 times more expensive, but it's safe. We don't have to worry about it catching fire, thermally failing from a lithium cell failing inside. And it's going to last longer. It charges faster. We're expecting roughly 20 years lifespan if you properly maintain it. And remember, Harley does recommend that you connect a 5-amp battery tender when not riding. That has a lithium setting on it and will fully charge this battery as well, the new battery. So I'm going to get a Phillips screwdriver. We're going to undo those terminals. I'm going to slide the battery out and we'll show you that new battery as we drop it in. All right, so just a basic Phillips screwdriver. We're going to be removing you always want to remove the negative first, but also reinstall it first. So going to be taking it off and then taking off the positive. We also have the main fuse pulled as well. So we're just going to pull both of these terminals forward to make clearance, and you have this strap in your Harley that you can put your finger through. And as you pull those forward, as you lift this, the battery's going to lift up, allowing you to grip it and pick it up because it is pretty heavy. Like I say, they're about 22 pounds. Our new battery, not nearly as heavy. You're going to see it has two sets of terminals. We want to make sure that we spin this battery around. So there are negatives facing the brake side, the positives on the clutch side, and this is a direct replacement that drops into that factory hole, just like so. It also uses the same exact factory threaded insert, so we're going to reuse the factory hardware. It comes with, from Excess Power, some Allen head bolts for adding accessories to the rear post, but reuse the factory hardware on the front posts. And there's no modification needed to the terminals to be able to do this either. So while we're putting this in, we're going to go ahead and connect up our amp wiring. So we're going to take our black wire, we're going to connect it to the negative side, like so. Again, negative always gets connected first. I'm going to spin that terminal forward just like factory and tighten it down. Make sure your battery terminals are good and tight. All right, that is very tight. Let's take our positive terminal and do the same thing again. When you buy your battery from Volunteer Audio, they come fully charged. We do charge them and test every single one before they ship. And you get a 4-year free replacement on this battery if it were to fail. Likely it will not. All right, so now that we have those tight, we're going to put our cover back onto our battery, sliding these back under, lining this back up, tightening that torque screw back down again. I'm going to go ahead and just route this wire where I want to go. I want to run it up and under all of these parts. So pulling it this direction. Now I'm going to make sure that I drop this fuse holder right here in front of the battery. Don't want to leave too much lead in front of the battery because there is a hole that could let that wire come out toward the engine compartment, which we're not going to do. We're going to leave it about like that and then start its path up through here. All right, so we're going to stop there for a minute. We're not putting that cover back on yet, but we did want to get that routed correctly. So now we're going to move these accessories out of the way, drop our body control module back in where it goes, and slide it down to where it clips in. Now we're going to take this plastic cover from earlier, slide it underneath the plastic in the back, clip it in the front, and get each one of our little connectors here snapped back into it. So what they do is from the back, sliding back toward the front, locking them back in place. Also taking our heated gear plugs, snapping those back in. And we're going to plug in our rear speakers again. Our Volunteer Audio system, if you decide to add 6x9s, and we're doing that in this install, our rear speakers are going to be tapped right here. We're not going to have to go back under the seat for those, which is going to make this very, very simple. All right, so everything about the battery compartment's back together. Our power and ground is connected. We're going to continue to run this wire up the front. As I get up so far, I'm going to cross over to the clutch side, and I'm going to follow the wiring into the fairing on this side, like so. Let's get our cover and put it back on. So feeding that wire up toward the front. We're going to start at the front, snapping the front of this back together, making sure that we keep our brake lines over to the side, and we have all 3 pieces of tape out here where we can get them. We're just going to start working our way down, snapping this cover back in place. All right, so let's bring our tape back where it goes. And let's take that brake line back over and snap it back in its holder as well. Always make sure your brake lines are still snapped into their holders on the side of the frame, just in case you dislodge those. And now we're going to run that power and ground into the fairing. So let's come over to this side where we're running up in behind this fork. All right, so first thing, just take this, run it through, and let's get it coming out the front. like so. And now I'm going to actually rotate my handlebars so I have clearance to get to this up in the front. So there's a plastic cover that covers the side of this neck. If you'll grab that cover and slide it toward the rear, it will allow you to pull it outward. And that's where we're going to be running our wiring into our fairing, is behind there. So now that it is out, I'm going to start feeding this connector through the hole. Let's go to the other side so I can show you what we're doing. Okay, so now from this hole up in this neck area, we're going to find that connector from our wire, and we're just going to pull it into the fairing, pulling all of that slack up into here. I'll show you how to route that and where it's going to go here shortly. Don't forget to put the cover back on the side now. Remember, all we did is we pressed it in toward the frame here, we slide it back till the clip goes in, and then we let it go back forward. I'm going to straighten up my handlebar, and I'm going to put a single zip tie around the power wire here to make sure that it stays exactly where we have it on here and never getting out toward that front shock as we're turning. We're going to do that and then take a zip tie cutter and let's flush cut that zip tie. All right, so at this point, before we go into the fairing further, I'm going to go ahead and put the gas tank back on. We're going to get those parts back on the bike, and then we'll move in getting our amp installed and plugged into power. All right, so before we carry the gas tank over, I wanted to give you a better visual of these clips. So this is where that plastic line clipped into the frame under the tank. I like to rotate these around 180 degrees and face them down. So when I put my new tank, when I put the tank back on, I can literally take that hose and push it up and snap it in. Makes it a little easier going back together. And even next time as you're pulling the tank, pulling it down is easier than pushing it up. So let's get our tank over here. I wanted to show you that while you could see it, because you won't be able to see that as I'm putting it on. All right, so as you're going back on with your gas tank, be aware of where this plastic line is. You want it running down this side, and you don't want it to interfere with your bolts here as you're going together. So I'm going to drop it on here. I'm going to slide it on forward. And again, this line, it doesn't look like it's in the right spot, but it is. It is going to run on top of the frame into this area, but I still need to get it where it goes on this frame rail. So I'll go back through here, pushing it up into those clips, making sure it latches in. And actually the front one was not latched in when we started this, so it'll be better now than it was from the factory. Both of those are now snapped into place. Now I'm going to start my bolts for my gas tank. Make sure this line is all the way forward where I wanted it to be. Okay, that is good. Let's go ahead and hook our plastic lines back up before we throw our bolts in. So just taking that plastic tube back into the rubber hose. We'll do the same thing back here in the back. Letting this go right back down there. We're not going to tighten these yet, not till we get the front ones in. Moving back up to the front, I'm going to stick it in the hole by hand and then start it with the ratchet. Let's do the same thing on the other side. When I put this one in, I'll go tight because it is my fourth bolt, and then I'll tighten up the remaining three. All right, so I want you to take those rubber covers from earlier and let's get those put back on our bolts up here at the front. You just lip over that plastic, or that rubber lips over that black metal. All right, so we're going to get under our gas tank and we're going to reconnect these connectors. First, let's get our electrical connector back where it goes first. If you reach underneath here and you feel it, the actual plug or the little button you press faces downward. So we want to make sure it's facing downward. We want to get it lined up. You really can't see it well, but it's not too hard to go in. So we're in and we're connected. Now our gas line, put it underneath that silver sleeve, push the sleeve down. I'm sorry, up. Push the sleeve up while you're pushing the line up. And when you get it all the way in, you'll hear it click and slide back down. So our fuel is connected. Gas tank's back on. Not a hard process. So let's move back to the fairing. We'll get our new Extreme Audio amp plate mounted to hold our amp. We'll get our A2B, our amp back in, our headlight back in, fairing back on, and then we'll move to the back speakers. All right, so we're about ready to put our amp plate in, but I want to go ahead and plug in some of those connectors we removed earlier. One being this large infotainment plug. We're going to line it up and then press this yellow tab down to latch it in. We're also going to go ahead and take our front speaker pod, plug it back in, getting it snapped into its holder. Let's do the same thing on the other side as well. Our system is plug and play and uses all that factory speaker wiring to make this as easy as possible on you. So now we're going to take our Extreme Audio amp plate. We're going to drop it in where the original amp was, and you're going to see that these holes line up, and we've given you new shorter black screws. That's the reason we're not going to be using those original screws, is we want something a little shorter to go in here so it doesn't hang out the bottom so much. Now these are going to be your T27 as well. You can also get into these with a T30, but a T25 is going to be a little too small. We're going to start all 4 of these, and then we're going to tighten them up. Now we have a new version of this amp plate coming. It'll be here soon. It'll be stainless in color. We'll be moving to that because it's going to be a one-piece plate. This and the A2B mount will be one solid piece coming forward, which will be nice. We'll still offer the A2B mount by itself for people who want to do the Velcro style mounting of their amplifier. All 4 are in, so now I'm tightening them on down. All right, so now we're going to need a T15 Torx along with the screws that we sent you for your amp. And we're going to go ahead and start the screws on this end of the amplifier. So we're going to just start them into the bracket. We're not tightening them down yet. Then we're going to get our amp and we'll bring it over and we'll slide it into these two screw hole locations. Now there are 2 sets of screws on the opposite end. 2 are for the 4.500, 2 for the 4.900. In all of our installations at Volunteer Audio, we go ahead and go to the 4.900 in these new bikes. It is twice the power and it's just a little bit more money. So we go ahead and err on the side of caution, needing more power than not having enough. Now when you order your amplifier from Volunteer Audio, it's going to be completely plug and play. We go through a lot of steps that nobody else does. This amp has been powered up to a 4-channel oscilloscope. The gains have been perfectly set. It has been wired and heat shrunk to our A2B interface, and that A2B interface has been fully programmed. DSP tune and everything has been loaded in specifically for this bike and this system. We're going to take the side of this that has the wiring, we're going to bring it into the fairing, and we are going to slide it into those 2 screw positions on this end. So now that we have it sitting here, as I slide that forward and I get those lined up, I'll put the other screws in the other end, starting those again with my T15 as well. This is a very precision engineered plate. It holds the amp perfectly. I like it. Velcro does work, but I like the idea of actually having a plate holding our amp in. All right, so now that I've got my 4th screw in, I'm just going to start tightening those down, holding it in place. Very nice. All right, so before we mount our A2B, we're going to go ahead and get our headlight back in, and there's a few things we need to do first. We need to route our power harness. So this power harness is going to end up basically like this, because it's going to plug into our amp harness right here in front, right above the headlight. So I'm going to do a little bit of work with this excess wiring. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit of room here, and I'm going to take this plug and I'm going to feed it through this framework, just like we did that headlight wiring earlier. We're just bringing it over to the side where we're going to need it. I'm going to need about this much wire in total. So I'm going to take the excess wiring and we're just going to bring it through the other side, making sure it stays behind that headlight. I'd much rather have too much wire up here than not enough. And so that's where excess power is going to go, just like that, till we get our headlight mounted in place. So let's get our headlight back in now. I'm going to set our A2B up here out of the way while we do that. While we put the headlight in before we mount it. All right, so earlier in our installation, we swapped out a few of the bolts as we were doing the speaker pods. And we put some long bolts here at the bottom, and that saved us 2 short bolts to go here at the top. That's so important that you watch the whole video and you don't skip steps, because you will miss little things like that that you needed to know. So I'm going to bring my headlight down, just making sure my power harness ends up on top of it. We're going to plug in the headlight first. Make sure it clips in. Now, as you do this, this power wire is going to lay right between these 2 positions here where we were going to bolt our headlight in. So as we slide it back, it's going to fit a little tighter now with that sound skins, which is the idea. We wanted it to. We're going to take the little short bolts. We're going to start those at the top. All right, so we've got one started now. Don't have to worry about it falling out. You'll see these are long enough to go in, but not so long that they stick out the other side where all of our wiring is going to go for our A2B module. Let's take some long ones and go back in the bottom. As you pull this in, you'll hear it push into all of the sound dampening material. It gets everything tighter and tighter. Again, the less vibration we have in the fairing, the less noises we get, but also the more sound we get out of our speakers. Long bolts going back in the top of the headlight. We'll start our other one on the other side. Tightening them down. All right, so all of our headlight bolts are tight. Power wire's up here pretty much where I want it at as well. So we're going to get our A2B amp plate mount, and let's mount it here. All right, so at Volunteer Audio, when we build a package and a system for a bike, we build it for that bike, all the way down to these exact fitting plates. So this plate is going to screw in right here where the garage door opener could mount. If you do have a garage door opener, simple, you take it, you put it behind the headlight like we did this wiring, and it just zip ties in there and it still works fine. This is a perfect place for our A2B interface to mount, and with these little T30 torque screws through these holes, we're going to get our plate there for it. So wire management is always important, and I know it helps a lot when you get to watch me do this. So I'm going to try to get my wiring where it goes before I mount this in, because some of that wiring has to cross back and forth here. I want to make sure it's all in the right place before we permanently mount this down. Probably going to go ahead and just put one screw in it so it'll twist around a little bit in case I've got to take it back out. T15 Torx will get that one screw in there. This makes that where it doesn't want to move around on me. All right, and this harness as well can be moved a little. It's got some extra length behind the headlight, so it can be pulled in and out to go various places. This is going to plug in. This is the plug that's going to plug in and give us all of our speakers in the bike. All the factory wiring is wired just by plugging in that one plug. Normally I'm going to take this though, and I'm going to bring it around the front and put it in here just like so. If I left that long bolt in, this would not work. So you definitely want to make sure you have moved that bolt as we talked about earlier. We're also going to try to get some of these RCAs in a better location for mounting in here. And our power wire, I'm going to bring down. You're going to see these big black, these are anti-bucking magnets on the power and the speaker wires. And what that does, it stops interference from blocking FM signal. This particular amplifier is a great amp that won't block your FM. We don't want to lose that as part of upgrading our audio. Some of the other amps on the market absolutely block FM completely. So they do a good job at Hertz of making sure that doesn't happen. But they do make a little bit more of effort here for us to try to get everything to fit. So I'm going to be trying to figure out the best way to get my wiring laid out. It seems to be a little different on each bike. And we're going to do it like so. So I'm going to bring the RCAs around this way. And I'm going to take my excess RCAs. So our 8-channel interface, we're not using all of those RCAs in this install. If we were to add a subwoofer with a dedicated amp, we might use these later. But right now we're not. So I'm going to get those over to the other side and out of our way. So now that I have this speaker wire all on this side, I'm going to drop this down here at the bottom, and I'm going to do my best to arrange my RCAs here in the front, and we're going to use a couple zip ties to make this look tidy and keep it where it's supposed to go. So the excess of my amp turn on wire is also going on the end of my amp here, down on this end. And we're going to go ahead and plug our amplifier in. Now you may get a little spark here. That is normal. We would expect that. We're now plugged in for power, and I'm going to grab a couple zip ties and we're going to finish getting all of this laid out here and wire management done to make it look nice and tidy. And the idea is to keep all of these connections lower than the amplifier so that this easily goes on and off. Looks like we're doing a good job of that. So let me get my last screw in on my A2B, holding it in place now. I'll grab a couple zip ties and we'll secure this stuff down where it'll stay where we've placed it. All right, so I'm just going to take a couple zip ties and secure some things in here. Now the excess power wire that I don't need up here above the headlight, I'm just going to kind of fish back in on top of the headlight under this tray. There's some pretty stiff connectors there. But I'm going to take this zip tie down through here and wrap around it. What we're going to do is we're just going to bring this right to the front of the headlight here, and then we're going to secure it down with that zip tie to hold it in place. This is just an open void when the fairing's on, so it's a great place to leave this plug. Plus, if you ever need to take the amp out for any reason in the future, you can unplug it without pulling the headlight. Good place as any for that. It's all weatherproof too, so we don't have to worry about any water affecting it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a zip tie and go around these RCAs. Just making sure that we hold all of this down. It's not moving around in the fairing. And then we will do the same thing over here, just making sure this harness stays where we want it to be as well. All right, so after we've got that done, we want to take our cutters and we want to flush cut any of our zip ties. I'm going to take this little retainer and plug it back in here as well, just like so. All right, so there's our wire management and our fairing. We now have a very large 4.900 amplifier mounted solid, our A2B mounted in place, and everything's plugged in and wired and done. So it's time to put our fairing back on. So let's get that done. And then we'll get to the Tour Pak speakers. All right, so at this point, we're ready to put our fairing back on. I've already grabbed the 4 bolts that went in the top of the fairing and my T25 torque screwdriver. We did add sound skins to it, and that is going to make this a much tighter fit. It's supposed to, but our fairing is going to go back on. So we're going to bring it up as we're going on, slide it in place, and then you're going to take both of the sides and you're going to pull out to allow it to get past the speaker pods. Do this on both sides. That's going to allow us to get closer to fitting. And as you see, it's going to slide right up on. Each of the sides have these little clips, and we're going to make sure that they are in behind as we go on forward more. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start our upper bolts. So we're going to put one on each side to hold us in place. This makes it much easier for us to adjust the sides and get the side bolts in. All right, so on these headlights, there's an area of plastic that sticks out, and this goes over it. So we always want to make sure that we are over that. If your fairing is above that little plastic bump right now, you need to readjust it before you put these next 2 bolts in. But now I'm going to start putting the bolts in that go straight down. Starting those in the front of the fairing. We've not tightened them yet, because we're going to work this fairing in and pull it against that sound skins. So I'm going to grab the 2 bolts that go in behind the speaker pods and the 2 that go on the lower side of the fairing. And we're going to get each one of these sides in place now. So again, these little ribs have to line up behind that fairing. So we're going to bring it in where we're in place. We're going to press just a little bit more on our fairing. And the best thing to do is, as you do this, go ahead and start some bolts. So we have our bolts that go on each side of our speaker pod here. We're going to press forward and start those together. Now that I've done that, I'm going to start pulling this upper bolt in a little bit more. Go ahead and tighten those on both sides. Put that in even further. As long as these are still going together, we're going to go ahead and put our bottom bolt in. All right, so it's pulling all of that fairing parts together, compressing the sound skins on the outer speaker pods, giving us a very, very tight fitment. So I'm going to tighten this one down now as well. See, all of our gaps have mated back up to where they were factory. We'll go ahead and tighten this front one. Now that this side is done, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, if you're not lined up, you may have to press it toward the front and go ahead and underneath here for it to line up, like so. Once you've got that in, you should be able to start this bolt. Just going to start pulling all of that back together. Now let's line up that bottom bolt and get it in as well. There's an order to this. If you'll do it in the right order, it will go so much simpler for you. That's why we make these videos, to try to help you understand that order and how to get this done easier. Double checking that I tightened my bolts and tightening this one, which I know we hadn't done yet. Outer fairings back on, really tight. Everything fitting snug. It's going to give us much better sound and no rattles as we have these much higher output front speakers now. Let's go back together with the rest of our trim and our windshield. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take this plastic trim that goes under the windshield, put it back on. Let's go ahead and snap this front panel back on. This is very simple. Just line it up, push from the front. Now you do want to make sure that it lines up correctly in here as well. Just like that, it's back on. All right, so we're going to take these windshield mounts or brackets, and we're going to start those back in with their bolts. All right, same thing on the other side. Make sure all our bolts are good and tight here. All right, so let's get our windshield back on. Part of this windshield, this is an aftermarket windshield from Clockwork, so we are going to have these little spacers that go in place here. They don't really want to stay on until you get the windshield here, so we'll slide them in once the windshield's in place. Don't glue these on. There are bolts behind here you need to access, and I've had way too many times that we find that the last shop that did it glued them in place. You definitely don't want to do that. So let's slide our windshield into its position here. And then we're going to find the one for the right side. Sticking it in here, letting the windshield lean against it. Same thing on the left side. Again, these are also marked, so we have a left and a right. Your longer bolt goes to the back. Be lining those up. Okay, same thing on the other side. Long bolt to the rear, short to the front. Make sure you're starting them straight. All right, now we're going in tight. Both sides are in and tight. I'm going to just double check my other side, making sure we're all the way in. I don't want to over torque them because we don't want to break this, but we want to make sure it doesn't fly off going down the road as well. All right, so the fairing's back together other than our front speaker grills. So we're going to go ahead and look at our hog badges. I'm going to show you how to install those on your grills, and let's get our grills back in our fairing. All right, so we're going to install some hog badge Hertz logos. These are new grills. They're very, very clean. You could use some isopropyl alcohol to clean them before you stick them. In this case, this is a brand new bike, so we're just going to take them and peel them and stick them in place. It's a very, very easy thing to do. If you had a CVO or stage 2 or stage 3 grills, there's also a little logo here you just peel off and put these on. But on this base model, or in this case a limited, the grills do not have a logo on them, so we're just putting a new logo right on top. There we go. Now we have a Hertz grill instead of a Rockford grill. Do that on the other one as well. We're going to do the same thing when we get to our Tour Pak grills. These are self-stick. These are laser engraved, laser cut. Hogbadge.com if you want to get any custom ones. But we do sell all the Hertz ones and the different ones for our packages right at volunteeraudio.com. All right, let's get our grills back on. So back to what we talked about to begin with, we definitely want to make sure we don't break these. We also want to look at our gasket, make sure it's still snapped back in all of the places it's supposed to go. Bring the bottom of the grill in first. Line up your clips that are going to have to go in place. You can kind of see those and line them up. Once they're lined up, just kind of press in and you'll feel them click in place. Let's do the same thing on the other front grill. All right. The factory grills are very good quality, but now we have amazing speakers. We want to show that off. So now we have our logos in place to let people know that we've done an upgrade. But don't worry, they're going to know as soon as we pull up or coming toward them as they hear the audio play. All right, so we're going to move on to the back. And we're not going to put our seat on until we're all the way done because we have some wiring to run later for our speaker lids, and I want to go over that with you. But until then, for better visibility, we'll leave the seat off. Let's take these original speakers out of the Tour Pak. Let's upgrade those, and we'll continue to move forward with our install. All right, so this is not the first limited we've done. And the last one, I actually had to spend a little bit of time correcting some brass inserts that I think are wrong on the way the speakers are installed. Let's get the speakers out. I'll show this to you and show you my solution to make this better. This is a T10 torque screwdriver we're going to use to remove the 4 screws holding the speaker grills in. Now the older Tour Paks, the old style, their pods had little rubber grommets that were pushed in, and then as you screwed in your Tour Pak speaker, those grommets would swell out and were supposed to not pull out. We've had many, many people throughout the years install better speakers, more powerful. With that, you're going to have more vibration, and they end up losing a speaker going down the road because those inserts would pull out. So as I did our first install on one of these, I was really happy to see they went away from that design. They're no longer using those rubber inserts. They put some little brass inserts, and I like brass inserts. But the problem we had is if you start looking at them, there's a little flange on them. They've already started pulling out because, in my opinion, they're in the wrong direction. We'll go over that. Let me unplug the speaker first. The black terminal is going to be our negative. When we go back together, the silver or the white one is going to be our positive. Same speaker that we looked at in our front fairing. But let me show you what I found. So as we installed new speakers last time and went tightening them up, we found out that these little inserts were not in well. And so if we use this and we put our new speaker in and it is playing with its more power, its more vibration, it's going to come loose. And I don't want your speaker to fall out going down the road, damage your lid, maybe hit a vehicle behind you. This would not be good in any scenario. And these little inserts, I have a quick way of showing you how to fix this. You are going to need a soldering gun or something to heat the end of the brass insert. I'll show you that. We'll get these corrected, and then we'll show you the new speakers going in place. Now, if you do not have a soldering gun, no way to do this. You could do this a different way, which would be just cut off this little alignment tab, rotate the speaker just slightly, and use the included screws that come with the speaker to go through the grill, through the speaker, directly into this plastic without the inserts. I'm going to show you what I think is the correct way or the better way to do it, and then we'll let you judge which way you decide to do when you do the install. Either of those are going to hold it in, but the problem is I do not believe in any way at all that this is going to long-term stay in going down the road. As easy as it is to pull these out, and as easy as it was for the first ones, I thought I stripped the screws on the first install, and I was just barely giving it any pressure, and in reality what happened is the little inserts had pulled out, which was good, because that meant I could reuse them and I could show you this trick, and we learned from all these installs. All right, so in preparation of putting these in the correct way, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get each one of your screws, and I want you to get your insert, and I want you to put it behind the hole, And I want you to start your screw through and go ahead and thread it all the way through till you feel it hits the bottom of it. Okay, we're going to do that for each one of these. And then we're going to heat them up and we're going to pull them through. And we're going to find out this is a really good method that we don't have to worry about our speaker falling out, our brass insert pulling out. And also we get to reuse that factory hardware, which is going to work great with these grills after we put our hog badges on them. Now you could take a pair of pliers, you could grab these and just pull those in. I think heating it's going to be better. It's going to soften up that plastic and it's going to grip better so they don't spin as we tighten up our new speaker. I'm going to grab a little soldering gun, pull it over here, get it plugged in, and I'll show you what I do to correct this. All right, so I've got my soldering gun here. I've preheated it to 742 degrees. 750 roughly is what you would normally use for soldering. It's what I use to heat these up as well. I've got a pair of pliers because what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the end of the bolt, putting a little bit of pressure on it, pulling toward me, and I'm going to touch the back of this and just heat it up so it'll pull in. My only concern for you is I want you to be really careful your soldering gun doesn't have a super long tip, or somehow or another that you take this heat and touch that vinyl. If you do that, you're going to mess up your seat, and I don't want you to do that, or your pod here that matches your seat. So I'm going to just start pulling toward me. I'm going to touch this on the back and heat it up. It's not going to take much. Just giving a little bit of pressure as it's getting hotter. Just transferring that heat into it. Watching it start to move now. So I'm just going to watch till I see it bottom all the way out. Let's pull it all the way in. Once it's done that, I'm just going to let off. Just going to let it cool down. So I'll do that to the remaining bolts. There's 4 on each side. Shouldn't have to do this, but I think we need to, because if we don't, we're going to have somebody lose a speaker. We're going to have a problem later that we could have easily fixed right now just by heating these up and turning around and going the other direction. So, all right, so I've got all of my brass inserts spun around, heated up, pulled through. I'm letting those cool down. But I want to take a second and talk to you about our new speakers while we're doing what we're doing. And also we're going to go ahead and logo our grills before we go over there and put them in. So again, same speaker that we had in the front is in the back. This speaker does have a tweeter to the side, but with our Hertz system, we want the treble where it should be in front of us. We want to overcome that wind that's coming at us and get that clarity from the front. And our rear speaker is going to give us into the treble range, roughly 4 kilohertz range. But we're trying to get fullness and bass and great vocals from those rear speakers to keep up with it. And with this Tour Pak, we have the ability to play the bass that the front can't do from the airspace and the size of that enclosure. Our Hertz SPL Show SV165Neo is a 400 watt max speaker. It's 200 watts RMS power handling, solid woofer. It is a great speaker to go in, but you'll notice it's not huge. It doesn't require us to cut and modify the bike. It's going to drop directly in place where this one was. But again, very, 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 very weak magnet. Very, very, very strong magnet. It's amazing how much more strength we have versus this one. I can barely get it to wiggle. More magnet strength equates to a speaker that has better control, better power handling. It is what helps make it create sound. So we definitely want a speaker that's built to a whole different quality level. And us throwing 280 plus watts to each of the rear channels between our 6.9s and our 6.5s, we need a speaker that'll handle that for 3, 4, 5 hour long rides at full volume, which these will. So we're going to go over to our bike. We're going to put these on. But first, we're excited about these. We're glad we put them in our bike. We want everybody to know we did it. So we're going to take that Rockford logo on those rear grills, and we are going to use our hog badges, and we are going to get these took care of. Now, our friends at Hog Badge just made us for these this week, and we do have them in stock now at Volunteer Audio. Again, if you want custom logos, maybe you want it to say your club name, your nickname, something to do with what you call your bike, they can make those for you too in various colors, various styles. But in this case, we just want to show off our new Hertz audio system. And as you see, they're laser cut and fit absolutely perfect. So we'll be putting these on with our new speakers here. So let's go over to the bike and let's put that on, but I'm going to get my other logo on before we run over there. All right, so our Hertz speakers are going to be a direct drop in into here all the way down to that little alignment tab. But again, we want to squeeze these terminals, making them tighter to make sure that we do not have a speaker come unplugged later. As we're riding around, we don't want vibration to make them come undone. And this little step is important for that. So we're going to take our speaker on the back. We're going to have a positive and a negative stamped into the speaker terminal area here. Positive is on this left side, which is going to be this white, or yeah, in this case it's white, the front are more clear, and the black one is going to be our negatives. We're going to plug both of those in, make sure they're on tight, and then we're going to drop our speaker in here, aligning up that little alignment hole, making sure everything's where it's supposed to go. Let's grab our grill and let's put our screws in it. All right, so our grill is going to fit right onto our Hertz speaker, like so. We're going to look through and make sure we're seeing our little brass insert, and I want you to be careful that you start these straight and that they go in easily, because if they don't go in easy, you're going to get them cross-threaded, and we don't want to mess up these little inserts. So we're going to start each one. We're not going to tighten any of them up until they're all started. Easy so far. This should have been the easiest part of the install if it wasn't for those little inserts wanting to pull out and having to repair those. All right, so all of them are started now. I'm just going to work my way around, tightening them up, because it does kind of pull this speaker in. A little pop was our grill falling into place on our speaker. Hertz did a great job of designing a speaker with the same factory flange. These are built just for Harley use. Again, just working my way around. These are pretty small. They're going into brass, so we want to get them to where they're tight, but we also want to make sure that everything has fell in where it goes, so we don't want anything to vibrate loose going down the road. So one more time around. I think everything's worked out great. Logo looks great. Grill looks great. We've got one in. I'm going to go ahead and put that other one in. We'll come back to you here in a minute with these done, and we're going to move on to installing those 6x9s into our saddlebag lids. All right, so it's time to move on to our bags and to get some 6x9s mounted in our saddlebag lids. We're going to be using the Hertz HD 24H cutting kit. This cutting kit is available. It comes with what we call our louvered style grill. This is their look that they've had for a couple years now. This particular customer wanted a smooth grill, and they offer that as well. It is an additional part that you buy, but Hertz also has some smooth grills. This kit was designed to work on those CVO STs and base model bikes that had no factory rear speakers. And with an additional harness, these are easily adapted into our Limited. Now keep in mind, to do 6 speakers in a Limited, you are going to have 4 ohm speakers all the way around, so that amp can run all 6. The factory speakers are 2 ohms, so this is not possible with the factory amp and the factory speakers. You will cause trouble. You will burn things up. In our system, though, it's very easy. We're going to have this harness that's going to plug in at the base of the Tour Pak. It's going to give us an additional output that then we're going to use part of the wiring that comes in our cutting kits to hook this up. So Hertz is going to include in here a couple pieces. They include an under seat harness, which is not used in this install. This is for bikes that did not have rear speakers, but it's also going to include this connector. So this harness is going to plug in into our adapter at the base of the Tour Pak. And both of these are going to be routed down to where they can plug into the bags. And then we have our harnessing that runs into our bags. So I'll go over that with you. I'll show you how to install that here shortly. But we're going to get our bags removed from the bike next. We're going to mount them on a stand that I have for when we're cutting. And then we'll show you both the wiring and how to cut those bags in. All right, so in these Limited models, there's actually 2 places in the bike that have a rear speaker connector. One is up in the fairing and one is here. So you could plug this in the fairing and then run a backbone back and then go out to your bag lids. I'm going to show you the way to do it starting at the Tour Pak, because a lot of you may start with a 4-speaker system and decide to go to 6, and this is going to keep you from pulling the gas tank or running additional wiring. And it's the same amount of cost either way for you, because this harness comes with the bag lids, and no matter what, this is sold separately. So we're going to start back here, and we're going to unplug the 4-pin connector at the base of the Tour Pak, and we're going to plug this in between. You're going to see that we have male and female connectors, and it's as simple as plugging these in, and now we have added on some additional plugs that we can go out to more speakers. So then we're going to take this harness. This is what goes out to our saddlebag lids, and we're going to plug it into one of these. Now on these, they are marked brake and belt. So we're going to go to our brake side with this one and our belt side with that one. Let me grab some zip ties and show you how we're going to do this, how we're going to secure this up. So we don't want to leave a mess under our seat or behind our seat for that matter. So we're going to try to bring these down to where they're not any taller or taking up any more room than they were before. And then we're going to actually put a zip tie around and secure this in that position. So zip tying that one. And I want this to stay toward the middle. So I'm going to put another zip tie in this area right here in the middle, trying to keep this out of the way of getting to our bolt as we take our seat on and off. As we do this, we're going to cut our zip ties, flush cutting those so they're not sharp and they don't try to get anybody later. Now we're simply going to run our lid speaker harness to our lids where they're going to connect behind our bags. So we're going to come down on this side, we're going to come behind our shock. I want you to take a zip tie and come to this front hole, right where it says brake on the wire. We're going to tighten it down in that position. So these are places for factory wiring to be ran. We're going to do it just like so. We're going to take another one and we're going to do it right back here. This is keeping everything away from the tire, away from the rotor, away from the shock, so we don't have to worry about having anything rubbed through later. This wire is then going to just run just like so on the edge of this. When our bag goes on, when our seat goes on, this is not going to be very visible. No more than this large harness is that a Harley ran from the factory in the same manner. On the other side, I want to do a similar routing. I'm going to start by securing it here to the factory wiring that is already here, like so. Come down here, securing through this wire holder loosely till we get our front one on. I'm going to put one more zip tie through here. These are weatherproof disconnects so that if we need to service the bike, if we're going to have to take our tire off, if we're going to have to get to our brakes or our shocks, that we can easily remove that bag. That's what this is going to allow us to do. And it's very, very easy to add this rear wiring in this manner. Just like that, we are wired and ready for our saddlebag lid speakers on the bike side. All right, so let's just move on to our bags. We'll get those cut. We'll get our 6x9s installed, wiring in the bag, and we'll come back to the bike. All right, so I want to take you through the process of how to cut these lids, how to add your 6x9 cutting kit, and believe me, this is the best way to add 6x9s to your bike. It's going to position the speaker properly and take up the least amount of room in the bag, and it's something you can do in a few minutes. And I'm going to walk you through the steps to make sure that there's no way that you end up messing this up. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to tape off the top of our bag. We have a template that we're going to screw down and cut, but we want to protect the bag from that template. So I'm just going to take some painter's tape, and I'm going to put a couple layers here just on top of the bag, making sure that I'm careful that I don't bunch up or create any large areas that would throw off our template. Our template's going to rest right in this front body line, so we want to make sure that we keep all of this pressed down and smooth. This is not hard to do, as you see. Just trying to lay this tape with the body line so it doesn't bunch up too much. You're going to get a few little creases in it, but don't worry, that'll be okay. We just don't want some really large ones throwing off our location of that template. All right, so now we're going to take the template that was included with our speakers. We're going to drop it right on top of our lid. And what we're trying to do is we're wanting to make sure that we see no gaps here, here, or around here. It wraps around 3 sides. And also the front of this template is going to sit right in this front body line or front edge of the bag lid. When we have this in the correct place, we're going to put 3 screws in to hold it there while we do our cutting. Again, just pressing down, making sure it's all the way down where it's supposed to go. Then we're going to put a couple screws in to hold it there, and then we're going to recheck before we start cutting. All right, so now we're going to see that we are right against where we're supposed to be all the way around. There's no weird gaps or things that are off. We're going to relook at this front body line, making sure that we are sitting right there with the edge. Same thing over here with our template. When those are where they're supposed to go, this is correct and you're not going to mess it up. Now we've got a little bit of modification to do to the inside before we start cutting. So we're going to go ahead and open up our bag lid and I'll show you that. All right, so we've got a few pieces of plastic we have to remove from the underside of the lid before we start cutting. To do that, I'm going to actually remove these 2 T15 screws that are keeping our bag lid from opening all the way up. But one of the things we're removing is actually this location in the lid. That's going to be replaced and built into our new cutting kit. All right, now from here, I'm going to open my lid up and I'm going to come into the back side and I'm just going to snip these edges. What I'm going to do is I'm just cutting this plastic because I'm going to be breaking this off. And once it's off, we're going to take a sander and sand it smooth. Just like so. Now I'm going to take my D8 sander, I'm going to drop it in and sand this. So I'm going to go ahead and remove a couple of the screws real quick, just so it doesn't get in the way of my sanding. We'll put those back in before we start cutting. Let's see, I've got plenty of room for that now. And we're also going to snip this little piece right here, making sure that it is also flush. Just like so, I've got rid of this. I'll hit this later with a different style sander, but we're going to put our screws back in now and we're going to cut this. All right, so to cut this out for using our template to put in our 6x9s, we're using a Milwaukee hacksaw. It's a one-handed sawzall with a special blade in it. It has a sawzall style blade, but with a jigsaw end on it. So it's very small, easy to maneuver and cut around corners. But we've got to drill a couple holes first for that bit to go in. So I'm going to take a larger bit here. See if I can tell you what size it is. It's a 3/8 bit. And I'm going to cut both of the corners or drill both corners and then use my saw to cut around the outside. I like to start in these corners because they're a little rounded to begin with. Just like so. Now I will take my saw and I'll drop it in here and I'll cut up through and follow the outside edge of this all the way around. Like so. Let's come on up and get the back edge. right, so now I'm going to come to the same corners, and you'll see there's a little notch here. And I'm going to cut up to the beginning of this, and then I'm going to cut through here and off, and then I'll trim that down. Stopping at that point, I'll start here now and work my way back. Understand though, as you cut, if you cut through this, there's no longer anything holding the middle of the template to the outside of the template. So we've got to be aware of that as we go. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and just put a little mark on here to make sure that I cut it in the right place. This is just something that's probably not required, but just a little something extra that I wanna make sure I get it cut in the exact place that it's supposed to be. All right, so now that I've got this cut, I'm gonna remove our outside edge of our template. And now I can look at that mark that I just made and I can cut this perfectly. On that angle. I'm going to take my sander and I'm just going to smooth up these edges. All right, so we followed those lines, we cut out our template, and now we're going to remove our tape. Now that we've sanded those edges smooth, I'm going to take a vacuum and I'm just going to clean up our little bit of mess we left in the bag. So when I'm done, I'll do a final wipe down in the bag just to get any dust that's left in there out. But that is good enough for us to proceed with installing this cut kit together. So let me get those parts. We'll be right back putting those in. All right, so on the Hertz cutting kit, it is different from most any other cut kit we've ever had. The 6x9 is going to actually drop in from here and get screwed in, and it's got a gasket that goes on it. We're going to do that before we put it in our bag, and I'll show you how it goes in, but it actually slides in between some of this mechanism. So we'll go over all these steps with you. And then the last thing we do is put our grill on and secure it with 4 Torx screws. It's got brass inserts. It fits really well. Let me grab our speaker and our gasket. I'll show you how to get those mounted in it. Then we'll move on to putting it in the bag. So in preparation to install your 6x9, you're going to take one of the gaskets that came with your cutting kit. It comes with a thin gasket and a thick gasket. And I normally use the thin one when I'm doing this. But you're going to just take it and stick it to the back side of the speaker, lining up this gasket as it goes around with the holes where it screws in. This is going to give us a watertight seal. These speakers are weatherproof. We don't have to worry about getting in the rain or washing the bike. We just don't want to pressure wash speakers. Never a good idea to actually pressure wash the cones. You could rip them, but other than that, they are very, very weather resistant. Now we're going to take our cutting kit. We're going to take our speaker terminals. We're going to face it toward the back of the cutting kit, like so, toward what would be the middle of the bag. Let me grab the screws that come with this and we'll get this mounted. All right, so the hardware that's included is going to be some Phillips screws, and it's going to come with some little black washers. You want to put these washers in. It keeps the screws from grabbing the edge of the 6x9 and messing up the rubber surround on it. So you definitely want to make sure that you use those washers as you put this in place. Let's start our first screw here toward the back. I'm going to start them and then we'll tighten them at the end. The same thing on our front one here. And this speaker was specifically designed for the Harley CVO lids. And then they built their cutting kit, 3D scanned exactly off of that factory CVO lid as well. So we get the same angle, the same fitment, and the same look inside of the bag. So I'm going to tighten all these up now that all four started. And you want to do this by hand because we don't want to spin the screw around and actually mess up the rubber on the speaker with it. All right, so we've got that done. I'm going to grab another little panel tool to make some room and show you how that we slide these in under the lid. You are going to want something like this, and you could use a screwdriver in its place, but I like to use something that's plastic and non-marring. We're going to come up here at the top and we're going to slide this in under here. That's just going to create a bigger gap here for this particular cutting kit to slide in. And we want to look at our gaskets on it. It is fully gasketed all the way around. Make sure that gasket is in position. And then we are going to slide this in underneath this particular cutting, this mechanism. You don't have to take it off. You're just going to make a little bit of room where it'll slide under it, like so. Now we're going to spin this over. We're going to look and make sure none of our gaskets moved, and they did not. So we're lined up. We're looking good. I'm going to take our new grill. I'll put it in place, and I'm going to grab some machine screws, and we're going to go from the other side, and we're going to start those screws. All right, so there are brass inserts on the back side here, so we're going to be careful that we line these up correctly using our T20 torque screwdriver. We're going to start by trying to line up the front screws. Feels like that one has started. We're not going to go tight. We're just going to get it lined up in that brass. Get a couple turns on it, then we're moving on to the next one. If you ever have a problem getting one started, just spin it the opposite direction a few times, and generally you can get it to start. Sometimes this brass will squeak at you a little bit as you get more and more of these in because we're lining up some different points and we're pulling gaskets in as we go. Just make sure that if it is too hard, that you back up, and you definitely don't want to cross thread them. So we've got this last one started here now. Let's go ahead and get the front ones in tight. Pull those in first. All right, we've got that pulled in tight. So now we're going to get the last one. All right, so those back two are very tight. Gasket's pulled in really well. As you can see here, we're fitting really well all the way around. And our new grill and speaker and cutting kit is installed. So now we're going to take our T15 again. We're going to reinstall the hardware. Makes it where our lid doesn't want to open too far. As you've seen, I've been holding my hand on that lid. We don't want to open it all the way up until we get these back on it. We're going to take that same factory hardware and we're going to reattach to the new cutting kit. Just like so. I think it looks really well, so I'm going to wipe it down, but we also need to cut one more hole in it because we're going to be adding our speaker wire in this bag. So let's go ahead and do that now, and then we'll wipe it on down. All right, so you could use a unibit, or in this case, I'm using a 5/8 paddle bit to actually drill a hole through the bag for our wiring. And what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to come right between the front mounting point and the front latch. We're going to come right about in this area, and we're going to drill a hole from the back side of the bag. Just like so. We have a hole drilled through the bag. And let's grab our harness and go ahead and feed that through. Now the harness you get is going to have a grommet on it, probably with a zip tie. If it's not on this end, you just want to slide it down to that end, to where the plug is, like so. Bring those speaker terminals into the bag. Grommet from the other side is going to be pushed in. Let me actually lean the bag out and show you this process up on the, I'll take it off and set it up here so you can see this much better. All right, so maybe a little bit better visual for you. As we're going into our bag here, we're going to try to get this grommet to fully seat. We want it to go in, but we also want to make sure that it is watertight. So we're just going to press down, feeding the inner section of that grommet into the bag as we go, like so. And from the inside, you should see that you have a nice seal all the way around where that wire goes into the bag. That's all we had to do here. I'm going to go ahead and take this bag. We're going to plug it in and put it on the bike, and then I'll show you how to route the wiring on the inside to that speaker. Let's set our bag in here. Let's go ahead and plug up our harness. That we ran earlier. We're going to open up our bag. From here, we're just going to take our retainers and bolt it back in. All right, so in your kit from Volunteer Audio, we included these zip tie bases with your cutting kit. This is something we add. There are a lot of extra parts that Volunteer Audio adds that doesn't really come in the kit if you were to buy it straight from Hertz or another dealer. And this is one of those parts. So we're going to take 4 of these zip tie bases, placing them where they go inside of here. Just following around this bag. This is going to keep our wires secure. It's going to make it look nice when we're done. It's going to make it clean. Just like so. Just coming around about the same distance as our hole down and following around to where we're going to go to our speaker. So next we're going to take our terminals here. Our red one's going to be positive, black is negative. We're going to go ahead and plug those in. Now at the end of every install we do a polarity test to verify that all this wiring is correct. And that's because Harley can be inconsistent in how they wire their bikes at times. So we want to make sure that we get this right by testing at the end. But for now we're going to go with what should be right, which is the black being negative. We're going to take our 4 zip ties, going through these bases, just like so. And we're going to take our last zip tie, going right through here. We want any excess lead we have, any extra, toward this 6x9 because this is going to open and close. We want to make sure we have plenty of room there for it. Now we're going to cut each one of those zip ties flush. And just like that, we have wired and installed 6x9s in this bag. All right, so we got one side done. I'm going to do the other one off camera. It's going to be the exact same process. So if you do what you just saw again, it'll be done as well, but no need in going through that. Once I get that done, we'll hop back on the bike. We'll be putting our backrest on, our seat on, and we'll go into the radio after we put our fuse in. We'll go into the radio and we'll do our speaker configuration and we'll get to listen to it. We're almost done. Let me get this other bag done and we'll be right back. All right, so I got our second bag done. Both bags are mounted. Both bags are wired. Looks great inside and out. And we are ready now to put our seat back on. But before we do that, we need to put our fuse in our side panel. We removed that at the beginning of the install. Everything's plugged back in now. We don't have to worry anymore about anything electrically causing a check engine light or code or so on. So I'm just going to pull this cover right back out like we did earlier today. I'll take this little fuse and I'm going to stick it back in its hole here. Just like so. I'm also going to put this cover over the fuse and snap our side cover back in place. All right, so let me grab our seat. We're going to plug it, make sure we plug in our heated seat connector and put it on next. All right, so I'm going to bring my seat over and I'm going to plug it in first. Now I know from the factory it's actually going to be clipped into here, but I think somebody had already had the seat off before. So we're going to clip it in like it's supposed to be. Now we're going to bring our seat and slide it up all the way forward. We're going to view back here and make sure that we clear any of our wiring that we added earlier. Let me open this up so you can see a little better. So we're just going to come down in here and put our seat bolt in. I'm going to take our little pad, drop it in where it goes, snap it back in place as well, just like so. And let's get our strap brought over the top of our seat and screw it back in as well. All right, so our bike is back together. We'll go ahead and pull our front fender protector off. And we'll get into the radio and set up our speaker configuration. All right, so let's turn our bike on. We're going to put it in accessory mode. That's just going to be holding the trip button until the radio comes on. We'll go ahead and make sure we turn the radio down in case it was left up on its last start. I think it's turned out great. Look at how awesome the lids and the Tour Pak and everything look together. Looks fabulous. We've got a ton of additional mid bass without losing all that rear space. And now our radio is booted up. So let's go in here. We're going to hit these little buttons here and we're going to go to settings. We're going to go to sound. I'm going to go ahead and put us on AVC3 and I'm going to go to HD signature here on our EQ. But what we're going to is speaker setup. See, yes. Now you're going to see volunteer audio powered by SeirenHD. We're going to go to speaker configuration. Now you're going to see that from the factory it was set to stage 1, and we are going to move all of this to stage 3, and we're going to stage 3 saddlebags. We're going to go none on Tour Pak. Anytime you're using the A2B interface from volunteer audio, if you'll do upper fairing and saddlebag both on stage 3, it's going to work no matter you do 2 speakers, 4 speakers, 6 speaker, 8 speaker. It doesn't matter. It's going to set it up correctly. We're going to hit start test. It's going to tell you that you're going to play pink noise or static through. You're not going to hear that with our interface, but you're going to do exactly as I'm showing you. Hit the left upper, right upper, left rear, right rear. This is bag speakers, and then that's going to stop your test. Test is completed. Let's turn off our bike. We're going to wait 1 minute and turn it back on. All right, so anytime you do speaker configuration afterwards, you want to go back into the radio. We're going to go to settings. We're then going to go to sound. We're then going to go down to speaker setup, and we're going to look and make sure that everything took and saved as we did it. Speaker configuration now shows saddlebag and upper fairing. Speaker status also shows the same. It does not say start test, which means it saved it and we did everything correct. So now we're going to back up. I'm going to connect the phone to it and we're going to polarity check it next. All right, so I have the bike still powered up. I've got my phone connected via Bluetooth, and I've went to YouTube and I've searched the word polarity test. When you do that, you're going to find a video that shows this tool from Volunteer Audio. You're going to want to play that and check all of your speakers. They're very inconsistent on how Tour Paks are wired, and we may very well find that our rear 6x9s or 6.5s are backwards from our fairing or so on. We want them all working together. We want them wired together so that polarity is the same. Gives us better mid-bass, better overall sound. Either way, it's going to be loud, but we're going to get our best overall tone, and that's why we include one of these in every one of our plug-and-play kits. It's best when polarity is right. So we're going to do this test. We're going to let you see the results, and then we'll go from there. So let's get it going. All right, we're going to start in the back on our Tour Pak. Three green and a red. Three green and a red, our lid. There's three red and a green. So they're definitely opposite from the Tour Pak. Let's check our fairing. Three green and a red from that one. All right. So what that means is our lid speakers are opposite from the rest. This is very easy to fix. I'm going to take a little screwdriver. I'll show you. We will remove those terminals. We'll just swap the positive and the negative, and then we'll put them back on. That's going to correct this problem and give us our best overall sound. This is not because we put them on the speaker wrong. It's because all of these factory-style Harley connectors can be pinned different ways, and we find that Harley doesn't do it the same way from bike to bike and even year to year. So we always want to run one of these tests at the end to make sure that everything is correct. All I'll do is I use a screwdriver to pry them off just to keep from breaking the speaker terminals. Now I'll just restart my test and I'll recheck those lids to make sure they're three green and a red. Awesome. Excellent. So we've went through the final steps. We're ready to play music. We have polarity checked our system. We found a problem. We corrected it. The bass even sounds better in those little pops and clicks. So let me go to Epidemic Sound. They are a copyright-free music company that allows us to play music that you can hear. I can't play just any song I want. I have to play something that YouTube and Facebook approves of. So we're going to load up a song, and I'm going to let you hear what the system sounds like now. All right, so you know it's loud when you can't hear yourself talk, but on top of that, I can feel it. It's got great mid bass, great clarity, the treble, the highs, the mids, everything about the music sounds amazing. I know that our customer is going to be extremely happy with his new Limited. This 6-speaker system is a little over the top. The 4-speaker sounds amazing, but this is a whole different level. Make sure you subscribe to Volunteer Audio on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook for the latest in Harley audio. And if you want to put a system like this in your bike, we'd love to help you do it, whether that's through step-by-step videos and you doing the install, or have you come here to Volunteer Audio and let us doing it for you. Give our sales team a call at 1-844-30-AUDIO. That's going to get you to a knowledgeable salesperson that's going to help you with your bike, your build, your budget, help you put together that perfect system for you. Now, for the whole year 2026, Volunteer Audio is giving $250 away every week to somebody to help them build a new system and upgrade their Harley. Make sure you check that out at volunteeraudio.com. It's simple, it's free. I just want to know about your bike, your build, and then we're going to help you with that budget by giving you $250 somebody every week the rest of the year. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, God bless.